Hello and welcome to our time. We all love our pets, right? And we don't want to lose them, but what happens when they die? Our guest in this episode didn't want to lose his cat, so he turned his deceased cat into a robot. Yes, you heard right. Actually, the bones of his deceased cat into a robot. And to explain how all this came about, from Wales, and having completed a very successful season at the Adelaide Fringe, welcome to Robin Wealleans.
Hi, how's it going?
It's good, Robin, but we know each other and are friends, so it's easy to talk very comfortably about the fact that what I just said is true.
Yes, you can verify this all happened.
I actually can. Yeah. Your cat is now inside what's basically, it looks like a hard drive computer. Of a computer.
The airlines think it looks like a bomb, which is a bit of a problem.
Yes, so flying around the world is difficult. But some people know that I was away over the Christmas break in the UK, so I popped over to see Robin in Wales. And I mean, it was a bit of a surprise to people over there because they said, what are you doing over here in winter time? But of course, we're so used to Australian summers that it was nice to be somewhere that it wasn't, for a change.
I've been trying to tell you it's not always doom and gloom in Wales.
No, it isn't. It definitely isn't. In fact, we had a lovely time. But let's talk about you before we talk about the cat, as you call it.
I'll bring some colour.
Colour's always good. It's colour TV. But Robin, in a former life prior to COVID, what was the main thing you were working with?
For 20 years, I ran a company that did big screens and visuals at concerts and events. I used to run cameras just like this and help encourage young people into that world, and it all went really well. Toured the world, did lots of big shows, ended up.
And this was all over Europe?
All over the world.
Right.
Ended up working for people like Coldplay and Calvin Harris, Skrillex, Andy C. We did Pink Floyd's reunion for Live Aid. I think that was my claim to fame.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've had an interesting life, and now I do dead cats.
Well, now things changed, but they changed because you bought a property not far from where you brought up, I think.
I'd had the property all along. That's not.
Oh, okay.
That's not true. I had the house since I got the house in 2000. In fact, the two cats, Lentil and Chickpea, moved in the same week, so we all moved in at once.
We're going to meet them a bit later, or photos of them. But you developed something, which I believe initially when you, on your property, this was just a pile of stones.
Yeah, it was about a metre high, complete ruin. The builders offered me $1,000 for the stone. It was just completely gone. It had a tree growing in the middle of it, a stream running through it. So I'm quite proud of that. It's a 400-year-old house.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's considered one of the best restorations in the UK.
Oh, it definitely is. And it happened to be, so much for the cold, wintry day, it happened to be a lovely blue sky.
Yeah, you brought the weather with you, thank you.
Oh, for one moment, yes, but not for the whole time.
Yeah.
But on your property, it's interesting because you're looking at snow-capped mountains in the distance.
Yeah.
And you've got this lovely old... How would you describe what you've got?
It's a sort of genuine Victorian farmhouse. The cottage is older, actually. There's probably been a house there for thousands of years.
Right.
What I've got is history, I guess.
Yes, well, see, that's something we don't really have in this country, the same sort of history.
Yeah, of course.
But I've got some more footage of actually where you live. This was the view standing beside the cottage.
See, to you guys, this might look fun, but this to me is a cold winter's day.
Yes, well, it was fun.
It's reminding me of home.
Cold winter's day. There's the cottage.
This is probably what it's like right now. So yeah, all this is restored as a bit of a sideline, and I'm quite proud of it because it's a really good example of how an old farmstead would have been.
How were you involved in doing this?
Yeah, made all the plans, sourced all the materials, did it without any planning permission. I'm quite good at breaking rules.
Well, it's sort of like that in a way because everything isn't perfectly square or straight. That's the main house, and this is the driveway. On the right-hand side, what is that?
That's an old stone barn that would have been for cows and so on.
Right, but this is inside the cottage.
This is inside the cottage. This is all original materials. This is oak from the forest just down below me, Watland daub, slate on the floor. And the reason it looks good is because all the materials are from that valley, which is how they would have built it.
Right, of course.
They didn't have cars and canals.
But it's now used as an Airbnb.
Yep, I'm quite enjoying using it as a place for city people to experience a bit of countryside and break.
Well, it was lovely staying there because, apart from the fact it was so fresh, but it was lovely staying there. And you call it Robin's Realm?
Yes, all my friends, I asked them what I should call it, and they said the thing that makes it cool is you, to be honest. So I don't mean to sound arrogant, but it's definitely got my character on the house.
Well, you identify as neurodivergent.
Strongly.
Just explain what that is.
Oh my God. Neurodiverse is a broad category for everybody from sort of mildly autistic to Asperger's to so autistic they can't speak to anyone. Covers ADHD and the whole spectrum of things. And in my case, high functioning, I consider it a superpower. It works for me.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you say a superpower because I guess a lot of people don't sort of realise that this is in the world of technology and the world of entertainment. These are the things that make people special.
Yes, a lot of the big progresses and real characters we speak of and consider to be truly legendary were on the spectrum. People like Jimi Hendrix, some of the people who got man on the moon, for example. Sometimes you have to think outside the box, and that's what I'm good at.
I was about to say exactly that. It's the people that can think outside the box that move us forward.
Yeah.
So COVID came along, and obviously you were more or less stuck.
Yeah,
on the property.
I heard the other day that you had a very short lockdown in Adelaide.
We did.
You were lucky.
Well, not in Melbourne though. Melbourne were locked down for virtually a whole year, but we had, I think originally it was 6 weeks and then 3 days, and then we sort of almost went back to normal. We had to avoid people and wear masks, but we were very lucky.
Yeah, well, so it was a different story in the UK. It was lucky that it was a nice, lovely spring weather. So at first, everybody kind of got into the vibe, and everybody learnt to make bread and grow vegetables. It was good. For a while. It was really wholesome and lovely, and a reminder of a time gone by. Actually, I think it did a lot of people good. To be honest, my own life was quite solitary and quiet anyway a lot of the time. So it wasn't much of a change for me. I'm used to being isolated. I live in the middle of nowhere.
But it really stimulated you to think, again, slightly outside the box?
Yeah, I did. I had time on my hands. I also learned to grow veg, and I had a dead cat to deal with, but we'll come back to that.
Well, we can start dealing with that now because we're going to talk about that in a minute. But so, first of all, we'll show in a minute your cat, whose name was?
Lentil. And he had a sister called Chickpea who deserves a mention because it's always the quiet ones. She might be the sequel, yeah.
Okay.
And there's a current one called Couscous that you met.
Yes, that I've met, who's got a functioning...
Yeah, she's got thumbs, I think.
Yes, really got thumbs.
Polydactyl cats, check them out.
I've never seen one of those before. Quite interesting.
They originate from Wales. They're known as cardi cats.
Okay.
Pirates used to have them.
You're very proud of the fact that you are in Wales.
Yes. I can speak Welsh. Dwi'n siarad Cymraeg. I speak Welsh.
Oh, okay. Say it again.
Dwi'n siarad Cymraeg.
Okay.
A dwi'n hoffi bod yn y teledu gyda ti.
But also you're embedded within, I guess, a community and a culture that's quite unique.
It's very old-fashioned. It's a bit like being in a Victorian script sometimes. Everybody where I live is a very different world to here or London. It's a countryside life.
Yes.
You have to trust your neighbours.
And you're quite distances apart. You can't sort of just pop next door for that.
Yeah, you go out once or twice a week, and your whole life is governed by the weather.
Yeah.
Everything.
Well, speaking of the weather, while we were there, there was just a few moments that you took us to see, really took us to the top of the mountain where there was snow. And there was a couple of us that went. It was the first time one of the lads actually saw snow, and we've got a bit of a snowball fight that occurred.
Yeah, that was magic. I hadn't realised that he hadn't seen snow before.
There we go.
This is at Llymbrian Reservoir. This reservoir was dammed in 1973. Sometimes when the water comes down, you can see the old Welsh houses underneath it.
Oh, really?
But it's, yeah, a really beautiful area.
It's quite amazing because of the freshness and the cold and the crispness and the footprints in the snow. It was just lovely to see that because, again, we'd just come from summer into your winter, so it was good.
Why do you think I escaped? Why do you think I'm here?
Well, we're going to come back in a tick and we're going to talk about Lentil. We're going to talk about what he became and a show that you're currently doing around the world, which is fascinating.
Yep.
And we'll be back in a tick. Welcome back. Robin Wealleans is our special guest. We've just been talking to Robin about his background and especially a very particular cat who was much loved, whose name was Lentil.
Indeed.
So sadly, Lentil died.
As we all do. Death is part of life.
And this was Lentil and obviously you.
Back in the good old days.
Yes.
When he had fur.
When he had fur. So just explain, why did you want to preserve the skeleton of the cat?
It all came from a conversation years ago on a holiday with some friends, and they said, how are you going to manage when Lentil dies? Because he was really my best friend, really, and the life and soul of the party. Quite an unusual cat, very friendly. And I said, well, we'll try and keep him alive in some way. We'll taxidermy him and give him like robotic arms and like a Jim Henson figure.
Yes.
That was the plan.
Yes.
Didn't quite go to
quite work.
No.
Because what actually happened, you put him in the freezer.
Well, my neurodiversity is what happened, because they didn't open the letter that said there was a power cut. So the corpse of Lentil defrosted in the freezer and just spread along the bottom, covered in chips and peas. It was a complete mess, a soggy moggy.
I mean, we laugh about it now, but it actually stimulated a whole series of events.
It did. At the time, it seemed like an absolute tragedy, and I didn't know how I was going to turn him into any kind of memorial from this defrosted cat. But actually, I'm really glad it happened because the end result's been much better.
And because really, you just said the word memorial.
Yeah.
Because in a way, that's what this whole adventure for you became.
Yeah, there's a serious message. There's a few, but the main one is how we remember those we love, and never forget their character and keep talking about them. When you stop talking about someone is when they're really dead.
That's true. They're forgotten.
Yeah. So the cat is just a metaphor, and I don't think we always deal with death very well, and particularly those who went before their time. And
I keep thinking of all of the pharaohs in Egypt. The fact that we're still remembering who they are because they were preserved.
Yes, I've always had a bit of a fascination with how we're remembered, and what can any of us do that will still be talked about in 100 or 1,000 years' time. Maybe we'll see.
Well, so you eventually got the skeleton of Lentil.
It wasn't even the whole skeleton. It was just a skull and a handful of bones.
Right.
It was a sorry start.
And then during COVID, you thought, how do I bring the cat back?
Yes. Well, I had a bit too much time on my hands and thought, I'm going to do something to honour him. How can I turn this into something artistic and maybe use it to get a message across?
Okay. And we've got we've got some slides of the actual show that you now do. For an example, you look very comfortable there, and if you look very closely, you'll see his head, not on the screen behind, but in fact right in the middle.
Yeah, that's Lentil's actual skull.
Yes.
We weren't allowed to bring him into Australia because you're not allowed actual bones.
No.
We've gone to lots of trouble and got him 3D printed.
Right. And so his skull comes out.
Yes, he's got an LED mood screen above him. You can see a little Marshall guitar amp in case anybody wants to plug in a guitar.
And what would they?
This happened.
Okay.
There's a mini bar underneath with a couple of beers in it.
Of course there is.
Or milk sometimes.
Yes.
There's a synthesizer, there's a projector, there's all sorts of things. I tried to imagine what I thought a cat would want in his perfect...
In the afterlife,
yeah,
so to speak.
Yeah.
These are all shots from Edinburgh?
Some of them are from Edinburgh, some of them are from a recent UK tour.
You're wearing the same coat. Take the coat off and reveal.
It's because there's skulls on the coat, so I thought it was appropriate.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
But the logo for the show is quite strong.
Yes. Cat GPT, it's obviously a pun on the program we all know and love. But Lentle's take is that he invented Chat GPT, and it's just a mistake. It's meant to be Cat GPT. That's his synthesizer on top. That's his tail, which is a theremin. It's got all sorts of sensors.
There's his head popping out, which it does.
Yeah, it works by objects which the audience pick. He's got fully fledged AI, which makes them ask questions. It's a lot,
but it's uncensored, isn't it? So
that version is, yeah, and it's hard for me. I've never done this before, and I couldn't have made it any more complicated. There are 2.6 million outcomes at the moment, so I never know what's going to happen. But that keeps me excited, and I think it's very in keeping with the idea of being neurodiverse and also how cats are, as they live in the moment, and so do I in this show.
But also the messages that you really want to get through are,
well, how we remember people, but also a glimpse into neurodiversity, perhaps for those who don't understand it, and an understanding of the hot topic that is AI, and life extension and sort of various upgrades we might get. Some of the stuff we all talked about 20, 30 years ago when Terminator came out is coming true. So
yes,
that's the subtext.
Is it true that with AI they fed information from the Terminator?
Yes, I've recently discovered this.
The movie?
Yes, which is one of the reasons why there's a fairly high chance that AI might take over and become a bad thing, is because when they were programming it, they used Terminator as some of the input code, which was a terrible idea.
It is a terrible idea. But talking about this, it sounds sort of a bit doom and gloom, but in fact, it's hysterically funny.
It's funny and it's quite inspiring, I hope. The other message is don't give up on a good idea.
Absolutely.
I literally had, bits of cat hanging off my mum's shovel. She shoveled it out the freezer, all like that with chips and peas. You just couldn't believe that this ended up being a worldwide touring hit. But
well, when you first contacted us to come over to do the Adelaide Fringe, I thought, what is this guy on about?
I remember thinking that you didn't know what I was on about.
Yeah, but, as we've gotten to know each other, it's been a completely different take on what you've actually achieved. What you've achieved is quite extraordinary, to do what you've done in this little box.
Yeah, the idea of it being a box is that it's hand luggage, so that you can travel anywhere with him. Because when I was designing this and thinking about it, I was also thinking about the kind of life I wanted. And when I used to work in music, I used to tour a lot and see the world, and I was missing that. So I designed a show which would be ultra portable. He speaks in multiple languages, and I was trying to design my future life, if you like,
around it.
Yeah.
What's that? We've got this tiny little figurine here. Just explain.
Yeah, so we've just been to Japan and New Zealand. Japan was something that was very much part of the plan in the first place. In Japan, they have these things. They're called bakaneko. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. And it's a folklore character, which is a cat who is a dead cat, which has taken on sort of supernatural powers. And they're considered very lucky. They're often dancing. They wear silly things on their heads, and they often stand on one leg. And they shapeshift, and they sometimes infect their humans. So I've essentially made a 21st century one of these, and possibly Lentle has come into me, and as every day passes, I'm learning more about cats and wondering if I am in fact a cat. Is this some sort of simulation? It's possible.
Everything's possible when you've got time to contemplate, something like this, and then to actually realise you've made virtually that happen, but in the modern world.
Well, yeah, and AI is something that not many people know about. I didn't know much a year ago, but I've written my own version of it. It's completely custom. There's lots of cat psychology in there, and trying to think of like a dead cat is a challenge.
Yeah, well, because the audience can ask it questions, and they're very diverse, some of the questions.
Yeah.
And also you have a prop box of items. How do you use those?
Well, that's my way of self-sabotaging, I guess. I'm putting the audience in charge and trying to keep it interesting for me, but also for them. Some people have been 4 or 5 times. You could never see the same thing twice.
Yes, so literally no 2 shows are the same.
Ever. You'd have to watch it for 400 years, I worked out.
Because you had enough time to work that out?
Yeah, I didn't want to be like Coldplay and playing the same set forever.
Okay.
So it keeps me interested as well. I've got no idea what's going to happen. There's never been a script. And sometimes that can go wrong, but it's funny when it goes wrong.
Well, the audiences I've seen have been completely engaged because they've frankly never seen anything like it before. It's such a unique concept.
And most people haven't seen AI do that before as well.
Right.
Most AIs are quite limited about what they will talk about. Things like death, politics, sex. They're all off the topics. Whereas I've broken that thing.
Well, there was definitely some political comments that I heard, and the cat was not in favour of most of the politics involved.
He can vary. I've got to be careful if I go to China, I think.
But the voice, the production of the voice, it's, I suppose, the closest to what we think a cat might talk like.
Well, I spent a lot of time looking at cat psychology. I read books about it. In fact, I consulted a famous Japanese cat psychologist, Yuji Hattori. I've been emailing him for ages. He doesn't know the cat is dead yet, but he says he can fix anything. And trying to understand how cats think, the way, like I said, they live in the moment. They're very spontaneous. Yes, it's a good metaphor for anybody who's neurodiverse.
Yes, well, speaking of metaphors, what metaphors are AI going to create for us all? Welcome back. We've been talking about an amazing creation that Robin has actually made a reality, which is bringing a cat back to life who speaks using AI, who has a printer in his body.
Oh my God, printers.
Yes.
Dead cats and printers is not a good combo.
I mean, it really is a crazy thing that people might think is quite macabre, but really it isn't. It's really funny.
It's funny and it's uplifting.
It is actually uplifting.
Kids love it. People often come out afterwards with their stories of their pets they've missed.
Yes, and they all want a photo with it.
Yeah.
But
I think we need to do death a lot more positively is the wrong way of putting it, but look back fondly on people. I think we could
well,
do better
again,
at
as I said, it's like the Egyptians with their mummies.
Yeah.
They look back fondly on the artwork that covered them, the stories that covered them, and they were created as gods. And you suggest in the show that perhaps an AI cat could take over.
Well, my astrophysicist friend points out that we might be in that simulation right now, because he said, well, of course we are, Robin. How can you possibly be touring the world with a robotic dead cat and getting people to pay for it? He makes a good point.
It's a very good point that's made.
I can't quite believe it myself.
So what's the future for you? Do you feel you'll go back to Wales, have summers in Wales, winters in Australia, come out for another fringe?
Oh, I'll definitely be back. I'm still processing it all. There's all sorts of interesting developments and side projects. I would like to use it to do some good, to give out some actual useful advice. Lentil has returned as a life coach. I think the concept is very broad. It could be a great film. The whole time there's been funny item after funny item, and I've been wishing there was a documentary team there.
I think when an audience first says, yes, I'm going to come and see this, they're a bit bemused and bewildered as to the whole thing. And it's just interesting how it doesn't take long to settle. And because this is so different to all other forms of, because it is an entertainment, let's face it.
I had 10 years to think about it as well. And like I said, it's a lot funnier than the original taxidermy idea I had.
The cat's sister?
Chickpea.
Chickpea?
Yeah.
What happened to Chickpea?
Well, I've got her full skeleton. I'm wondering what to do with that. What do you do when you've done this?
Yes. Those questions will have to be answered in another interview.
It's
Robin,
sequel
thank
for
you
next
so
year.
much. It's It's been great talking with you and great success with the future.
Thanks for your help, and thank you, Australia.
Well, so folks, until next time on Our Time, keep yourself nice. Till then, we'll see you next week. Bye.